Alright, next video on completing the square. This one says 9n squared plus 36n plus 11 equals 0. Our first step says if a does not equal 1, we need to divide the entire equation by a. This does not have a equaling 1, so I would divide this entire thing by 9, possibly, divided by 9, divided by 9. And I would be left with n squared plus 4n plus 11n, or 11 ninths equals 0. So step 1 is now completed. Step 2 says rewrite the equation so that the constant term is alone on one side of the equal sign. So zoom back in. There's my constant term. I need to get it by itself on one side. So I would subtract 11 ninths. I would subtract 11 ninths. And those would cancel out. And that would leave me with n squared plus 4n. Leave a blank space equals a negative 11 ninths. I'm going to change the color of that real quick so you guys can see it better. There you go. So now I've completed step 2. Step 3 says square half of the coefficient of the x term. So my x term is this middle term right there. I know it has an n on it. It just means that middle term. Do not use the term that has x or n to the second power, just x or n to the first power. So if my x term equals 4, 1/2 of my x term would equal 2, and didn't want to do that. And 2 squared would actually give me 4. It actually works back out to be that way. So I would have to add 4 to both sides of my equation right here. Add 4, add 4. So that's step 3. Step 4 says factor the left-hand side using the perfect square trinomial rule and simplify the right-hand side. So if I zoom in, and remember when we factor this, we're going to use half of x, so that x equals 2 is going to help us out a lot here. So when I factor this, this is the exact same as, well, n plus 2 squared equals, and negative 11 ninths plus 4 will give us 25 ninths. So now I have complete step 4. Last and final step says use the square root property to complete the solution. So I'd have to stick the square root of that. They'd cancel out. The square root of that. I'd be left with n plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 25 ninths. And then I would say that's the same as, where are we at? Here we go. That's the same as n, sorry guys, same as n plus 2 equals, well, the square root of 25 ninths, well, the square root of 25 would be 5, and the square root of 9 would be 3, so n plus 2 equals positive 5/3, or n plus 2 equals a negative 5/3. And just because I'm running out of space here, I think you guys probably can understand how I would do this. I would subtract, I guess I could subtract 2, subtract 2. That would cancel out, so be left with n equals a negative 1/3 for the left-hand side. And if I subtract 2, I'd be left with n equals a negative 11/3 on the right-hand side. So there is another example of how to complete the square.